So we're going to continue. They're talking about QA server, and I think he mentioned that one of the good parts about after they've gone through the strike test, the main test, the super test, the public test, etc., is that every time they're getting it on more computers with different hardware, different situations, different whatever, which is important because all that stuff is going to give you better testing across a variety of machines as opposed to just the shit that's in the office.
20 years that we try and run World of Warships on. It's quite interesting. It's a good, cool collection of strange PCs.
Oh, I think they turned them up.
So let's head off to the next question. There was a question from Eroni the Giant, who's asking, many games benefit from a community development for maps that can then be shared and used in games, even if this was allowed to be done in training battles only and distributed, for instance, through the mod station. Is this something we might consider?
I believe we even discussed something like this, and some loosely resembling idea of this is somewhere in our backlog to research. We think about it sometimes, and who knows, maybe what will happen in the next 5 years with the game. Obviously, I cannot confirm anything about it right now, but we'll see. And maybe, judging from some announcement and releases, who knows, maybe there will be increasing trend of such approaches and such features in industry overall. So who knows? Let's just say that we are not, we don't block this idea, right? We have it in mind.
All right.
So I think that one was about, having community created maps. But in order to do that, you have to have a map editing tool. Then you'd have to have the ability to submit maps and all that stuff. And then they'd have to be verified by a community process to make sure that they're worth using. I guess if you used it in a training room, that'd be a little different. There are some online games like Half-Life used to have it where if you wanted to play a non-standard map, you wanted to play a little custom map or whatever, you could do that. But you would log onto a server with a map you don't have, and then it would commence a downloading process. Take, a few minutes to download X amount of megabytes because it was back in the day with dial-up, and then you could boot into the map. So rather than having to download it and implement it and all this shit, it could be done on the fly, which would be kind of cool if they did it. But realistically, if they were going to do some kind of community-oriented map submission thing, holy fuck, that would probably be X amount of years in the future. I don't think that's on any roadmap they've got, but we're going to continue.
I mean, I think it would be cool. See, we have some player-generated maps to show them how hard it is.
Yeah, just to be clear, it's not a commitment on any kind. I'm not promising any feature like this. I'm just confirming that we do think about it and we do see some value in it.
Yep. And then there was another question. I thought that was quite good from Kane Cannon, because there is a difference there. He's saying you changed premium consumables because not everyone could afford them, and that was a disadvantage for them. Now you're saying you don't want everyone to have signals in their ships to vary the gameplay. Is that not a contradiction?
No. We just thought that overall, premium consumables were specifically, they were specifically interacting with players depending on their economy. So one of the problems we saw is that basically people with premium time, with economy flags, they were equipping all consumables by default. And if you, of course, watch different streamers in our game, they usually like this as well. Like, okay, so I'm equipping this ship, put everything premium there. At the same time, a lot of players who are not that active, who don't participate in that many events, who play more casually, they were either not able to equip all these premium consumables, or on the other hand, they've been doing this and it actually hurt them without specifically telling. So people equipped everything premium, even some things like spotter plane, which is not that critical, for example, on many ships, and it drained the economy and prevented them from progressing properly further. So I understand why you compare this, but I think the context is a bit different, and it specifically relates to credit economy in the game, the consumables, and we removed them for good. And we don't want any kind of other gold ammunition in our game. So we specifically removed this and ditched this idea, and we are happy about it. Happy how it worked. So now everybody is premium consumables, basically.
Yeah, and please also remember that the difference in performance that premium consumables gave you versus the difference in performance that combat signal flags give you is very, very different, right? On the one hand, we're talking about like I think it's a long time ago. It was like 30-second reload time for repair party and an additional charge. It's like really a very, very strong difference. Whereas the signal flags, if you play without them, I think it's going to be you're going to have to be a very, very good player for that to really make a deciding impact in the game.
Yeah, for those that don't know, because there are probably people that actually weren't around back before there were regular and premium consumables. Whatever you have now on your consumables, say like it's radar. You're gonna have radar. You're gonna hit the button. It's active for 40 seconds, and then it has a 2-minute cooldown. That was a premium radar, which was an additional like 24,000 credits or 22,000 or whatever the hell it was, if you wanted to equip the premium version for a match. A non-premium had an additional 50% on its cooldown. So 40-second radar, and then a 3-minute wait before you could use radar again, as opposed to 2. That also happened for Damage Con. Instead of a Damage Con that has an 80-second wait, it goes out to a 120-second wait, which is like, are you fucking kidding me? Or heals. 80-second wait on a heal turns into a 120-second wait. Like, they found that people that were going into game with premium had an extreme advantage compared to people that did not. So that's just, it was something that eventually they figured this is a problem, and they got rid of it. They removed this consumable option. It's just, this is the option you have. Radar with a 2-minute cooldown. Heal with an 80-second cooldown. Here you go. This is the thing. Compare that to the flag that makes cooldowns cool down a little faster, the 5% off. Well, if you have an 80-second reload versus the 120 of before, if you equip the little 5% flag, you shave 4 seconds off the 80, you shave 6 seconds off the 120. But still, that's a difference of 38 seconds more. I mean, it's fucking huge. Like, the difference between premium consumables and flags are massive. Anybody that's thinking like that plus 0.5% to 1% fire chance, or plus 30% flood, which technically takes like a destroyer's torpedoes from a 300% flood chance to a 330% flood chance. It's just not the same. It's a different concept entirely. Again, there are some flags that I think are more impactful than others. Like, I think the speed flag is very impactful. The heal flag, depending on what you're in, like a battleship, for instance, that's probably a really big deal there. Detonation flag, obviously, if you're in a competitive setting. But other than that, like, the bonuses are not huge. Although the increased duration of smoke is pretty big for, like, Italian cruisers. And increased hydro duration can be pretty big. So those can be influential. But still, it's not anything on the level of what the old consumables used to be. We're going to continue.
Just my comment on that point. Naviation's asking, can you shed light on what the improvements to the chat system mentioned in the dev blog today would look like? Very interested in this, as there is a lot of toxicity in chat game right now. Auto-censoring of insulting words, for instance, that is currently not done.
As for chat improvements, what we have, and this is something that in this statement generally there are a lot of things that we've been working on to introduce to our roadmap over the last 2 weeks. So we didn't plan this or didn't plan to do it so soon, but there are also things that were already in roadmap, and we just decided that it's good to make some transparency and show them. So improving chat system is one of things that we already been planning, and our approach was very simple. This task will be given to a certain strike team, which is mostly technical. They will look at it, evaluate it. We're already gathering, and you know that, guys. Mr. Conway, we're gathering different suggestions from the community with your help to our internal documentation. So we'll have this team. We'll have the list of different proposals, suggestions, our own and player suggestions, how we can improve chat system. Then this team will evaluate the scope of work. We'll see what can be done and when, and what cannot be done and why, and we'll create the feature basically. I'm not sure if it will be one feature or so just one big update, or there will be several incremental updates over the year. We'll see. It will depend on scope of work. And anyway, we will have the scope of improvements. Right now, we're just collecting ideas, basically. This is the steps. This is the step we are at right now.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what the hell this chat improvement thing is. I think that was mentioned in their statement that they put out that they were working on chat stuff. Okay, cool. So I don't know the depth of whatever the hell that is. I hope it's cool though. I mean, that'd be nice. Maybe they had like auto translating chat. That'd be pretty neat. As far as there's a conversation that's been going on, I guess, in chat regarding torpedo stuff and things of that nature. Adding torpedoes, yeah, it could take years. You'd rather suggest it than not. I get that, Adrian. But in terms of adding like low visibility, low noise torpedoes and movement-based torpedoes and other torpedoes, like you can always add more. You can always add more. You can always do more. You can't guarantee that what you add is good. You could always build your house a little bigger. You could always add another room. Does it matter? Does it make the house better? It's more, but is it better? Is it what you need? First off, like, right, we already see with the carriers, aircraft carriers, they've been working on tweaking for, I guess, the last maybe 2-ish years, because they basically finalized the concept with patch 8.7, and after that they've been kind of tweaking and dicking with, but they haven't really, like, altered the system. Well, right now, if they're figuring out how to have subs, subs aren't just defined by their torpedoes. Subs are defined by their ability to move. Subs are designed by their ability to interact with other ships, ability to be detected and fought off by other ships. All the different things that are going to go into the situation of a sub existing, and coming up with a whole bunch of different, versions of torpedoes, versions of different interactions. You got to keep it, you have to limit the scope to where you can figure out how things are going to interact with each other as a base, and then build off of it. In war, the best thing you can do in war is have a completely unfair advantage, and then you just kill them and they don't kill you. So if you have a sub that can't be detected, can't be dealt with, and your torps don't miss, congratulations, you kill them and they don't kill you. There's no concept of fairness in war. There's a concept of killing them before they kill you and winning. That is the fight that is war, and it's a constant battle of wits as to who can outmaneuver and outthink somebody else and advance their technology faster so that they get into a position where they can kill you and you can't kill them. Yeah, that's why they test and take here. Do you need Dutch airdrops? No, but you think it's interesting. Do you know why they're Dutch airdrops? Dutch airdrops exist because they put out sub battle, and battleships had no anti-sub warfare at all. They had none. And people didn't like that. So they thought, well, fuck, how can we get anti-sub warfare on a battleship? It's slow enough that it's probably not going to happen to park its ass on top of a sub. That's probably unlikely. So we'll have to give it some kind of ranged mechanism. So they came up with the battleship can select a position on the water, and it'll send a little plane, and it'll drop some depth charges. Well, if they already introduced the code to create an airdrop, why the fuck wouldn't they use the code to make an airdrop on a surface ship line? So they did. They made a tech tree line, and they used their new cool coding gimmick that they've coded into the fucking game because they made anti-sub warfare, and they formalized it. They did a thing. So did they specifically go out to create Dutch airdrops because they felt the game needs Dutch airdrops? No. They made anti-sub warfare, and they created that, and then they went, well, fuck, we've got this cool trick. Why don't we use it? And that's exactly what they did. All right, so we're going to continue.
Okay, thank you very much. And then there's one question that I will take. It is from Aegon 4200. And he's saying, will Big Hunt return? And if so, any idea about when that might happen? I can tell you it will return, and it's coming in 0.10.8 for Halloween, but we'll talk about that later. So, yay! A deadline! Back to other
not
questions.
8.
Huh?
Not
10.9, sorry, not 8. Sorry, wrong update.
Lies.
Yeah, I know. So there was a question from Ankand. He says, For random matchmaking, can you make it more comprehensive than it is now? Considering play experiences, ship XP, module research, getting a tier 9 game in your first game in a tier 7 ship can be daunting. Hybrids too should be balanced across the teams, he thinks.
That's something I'm afraid I will not be able to give you any like changes because our approach to random
Here's my question. Just pointing that out. They will eventually address my question.
battles matchmaking is very simple. It should take into account as few things as possible. So it's ship class, ship tier, right? And if something affects matchmaking as much externally, the possible solution should be to change this, not to change matchmaking to accommodate to this. For example, a lot of people still concerned with radar influence on matchmaking. And what we're doing internally right now, we're conducting a big research and we want to see, and this is something that we should use spreadsheet for, no jokes here, to see how radar ships and number of radar ships influence win rate of the team. So is it important influence? Is it really big? And just to give you an example, if we see that this influences matchmaking influences the win rate of the team a lot, then we will our next task will be, okay, so what should we do with the radar in general as a consumable? But the answer will not be, okay, we'll need to matchmaker to accommodate this as well. So we will change things that affect win rate of the team, but not matchmaking. The reason for it is not like some kind of just principle. The reason is very simple. We just want matchmaking to be fast, and that's it. Because the more things you pour into it, the worse exponentially it becomes for the game, for queues and stuff like this. So we'll have to introduce as few limits to matchmaker as possible, and work around other things that influence it.
This, I guess, addresses also a question that just popped up from Axeland. Could you please make matchmaking to only +-1 tier? It's very difficult and not fun to play tier 6 against tier 8 and so on. So I guess it's the same.
And to follow up from this, have we ever tested to see what the effect on queue times is with +1, -1 matchmaking? Kala and Kalita was asking.
I don't remember actually. I don't think we tested it live, but I think that we did like big data research because there are different setups our matchmaker brings. But like guys, +-1, it's not just about matchmaking speed. It's not. It's also about the variance of situations you can be in, and while there is also like we don't want to do extremes. Obviously, if we had +-3 matchmaker, it would be really tough as for lower tier ships. If we had like mono tier matchmaker, it would be pretty bad both for combat variance and because our game is still about researching stuff and progressing through lines, it would really kill the motivation to progress and would not reward players who research next tier ship because it wouldn't give them.
Feeding your family? Just got.
Fuck. Well, while this is running, I guess there's some stuff in chat talking about matchmaker things, so I'll talk about that once this is over, because I don't think it's going to last too long. 30 seconds. Rather than read all this and kind of just like jump it into the middle of what he's saying, I will talk about this after the matchmaking discussion thingy. In your place, they don't get a lot of ads? I don't know why. For Twitch, you might have ad blocker. I don't think I have it on mine.
Much power because they would always be battling against monotier. But as you know, we did. Oh my god, I'm too old. I don't remember. Was it last year or previous one? We did a lot of matchmaking improvements to make sure that the tiering there and like is better balanced. I think it was 2 years ago, basically, if I remember correctly.
I think so. The
Yeah.
10 battle.
Yeah, so we still addressed it. We don't want, for example, we don't want people to be like the only tier 8 in tier 10 battle. We try to work on this on such situations, but generally, plus minus current setting is okay, it works really well, and I don't think we will change it, honestly.
Yeah. Quick question I'll take in the interim. The Guru is asking, if matchmaking says it can be +2, -2, how come divisions are limited to +1, -1? Because if you have a division, we always count the highest tier of the ship for matchmaking to make it fair, so you can't force the system to give you an easier or like a lower tier battle, right? So if you have a tier 6 ship with a tier 8 ship, in a division, they might end up in a tier 10 battle, and that's really not a place a tier 6 ship should be. And in the past, we have found that unfortunately some people use this kind of feature to annoy and to troll other players, so we turned it off.
Yeah, as to why the +-1, it's because we have carriers only on even tiers. So, like, if someone has a friend with tier 8 carrier and he wants to play tier 9, still they should be able to go there. There's a question.
Okay, so I think he's going to ask mine next. But regarding Matchmaker, so there's a few points in there. One, speed is very important. That's a thing. Two, he mentions they did Rework Matchmaker, which they did a year or two ago. I don't remember either. I know it was a while ago, but what they did in the rework for Matchmaker was that they would have issues where there might be 11 tier 10s and 1 tier 8. And it sucks to be that tier 8, because yay. But there's a 2-tier spread, so it could happen. So they got rid of that. In order for there to be a tier 10 match with tier 8s in it, there have to be a certain number of tier 9s and then a certain number of tier 8s to fill the match. You still have that now? Well, there are parts of the matchmaking thing which break the rules, but in terms of establishing the rules, there is like 40% of the match has to be of another tier, X amount of other tier ships for interaction purposes. However, if you get past like a 3-minute or a 5-minute, checkpoint or something in the matchmaking thing, then it starts going into kind of emergency mode and it starts stretching the boundary of what it will pick and allow. Also, the matchmaker is supposed to try to get you into like 40% where you're bottom tier, 40% of matches where you're top tier, and 20% in the middle-ish or something, or maybe same tier. Obviously, there's going to be fluctuation there because it's going to depend on what players are in the queue, but that's what it was designed to do, and it kind of tracks that and tries to iterate off of it. Note, that's per tier, not per ship. So if you're ever like, well, every time I play this tier 6, I get fucked, but then I play something else, and it doesn't matter about the ship, it matters about the tier that you play. In terms of something else he said, he mentioned, right now they're reviewing radar. They're reviewing, if one team has 5 radars and the other team has 0 radars, isn't that fucking terrible? Isn't that just horrible, broken matchmaking? It's trash. I hate this. What the fuck is wrong with you, Ouija? But you have to understand, when balancing a ship, they use a concept of power distribution. So if you have a good way to kind of think about power is like money. If you have $1,000 to pay your bills and to do stuff and whatever, the position, like wherever you're going to put more money is going to yield greater results. If you put more money into food, you're going to have better quality food. If you put more money into internet, you're going to have better quality internet. If you have more money into transportation, you're going to have, a personal vehicle or a taxi as opposed to trying to take the bus or walking everywhere. You only have so much money. Where are you going to put it? Where are you going to invest it? That's where your power is. And radar is supposed to be factored into a ship on a power concept, that radar is X amount of powerful, which means if you have radar power, then you have less gun power, you have less armor power, you have less heal power, you have less movement power. It might be small, it might be large, but overall, it's all supposed to add up to that $1,000. And there are people that think about radar in terms of like, well, it's just fucking broken. In which case, it's very hard to have a conversation on, well, what's the power budget of a ship that has radar if you just assume radar is immediately the most expensive, most amazing, most world-bending consumable in the game. Realistically, it's not. People can play around radar. People can play around radar downtimes where you beta radar, the radar happens, and then you do whatever the fuck you're going to do for the next 2 minutes because the radar is down. or you just kill the radar ship, and then there's no more radar. So what he was saying more is, instead of coming up with changing Matchmaker to make sure that both sides have the same amount of radar, wouldn't it just make more sense to make radar be potent where it fits the power curve? Because if right now it's skewed off the power curve and it's overvalued or undervalued or something about it's fucking wrong, well, then we need to better tune the ship so that it doesn't matter what the matchmaking stuff is. Every ship on the team is bringing $1,000 to the party. Now, where it puts that $1,000 is down to the ship, but every ship shows up with $1,000, then theoretically it should all end up being the same because everybody's bringing the same amount to the table. As far as power distribution from captain skills are something that is technically external to a ship. Yes, there are recommended build paths and there are recommended concepts that people can say, like, well, if you're in this ship, you should have these captain skills. But most of the captain skills that are of primary importance can really be found within the first 10 points. And 10-point captains do take some time, but 10-point captains are available for purchase in the armory. They're available for purchase in bundles and shit if you really wanted to skip that section. And to be honest, it doesn't take that long to get to a 10-point captain. It probably takes something like 20 or 30 battles, and you don't have to be OP to get to a 10-point captain. You just play the fucking game. Now, if you're getting to the 11th, the 19th, the 20th, the 21st commander point, yeah, that shit's a long fucking grind. But the base 10, for a DD, which gets you up to concealment expert, for a carrier gets you the first 9 points, more faster, healthier. That stuff is going to be more readily available. You're going to get there. If you ever played World of Tanks, for instance, you might play hundreds of battles, hundreds, plural, of battles trying to get the basic skills locked in before you're even at a basic competency to be able to be positioned relative to an enemy tank. Because you have to get concealment up, but then you have to get a support skill up, but then you have to get something else up just so that you can move to a bush before they see you and kill you. And there's a big difference between World of Warships and World of Tanks in that situation. A 10-point commander is not that obnoxious. Obviously, 21 points is more power than 10 points, but that's part of playing the game. That's a reward structure. You play the game. You might have, your 21-point commander might have consumable expert. Well, you have more consumables than a person across from you. Your commander might have survivability expert. That's more health than the person across from you. Your commander might have a reload skill. That's 5% faster shooting than the person across from you. Yes, these all add up, but that's part of playing the game. If you really like the game, if you invest time in the game, then that's going to yield benefits. Put 21s with 21s. You don't have to do this. So another part about matchmaking, which he did not specifically address, but we're kind of talking about here, is the concept of skill-based matchmaker. Basically fairness, right? So in a skill-based matchmaking game, like League of Legends or other online games, every single game you play is a struggle. Why? Because you're going to play the game, and your skill is going to put you wherever it's going to put you. You're going to play the game, you're going to win. You're going to play the game, you're going to win. You're going to play the game, you're going to win. You're going to keep fucking winning, and then you're going to start to lose. But then you're going to win more and start to lose. And eventually you start hitting that 50-50. And that's where you stay. That's where you are. Now, if you get better in the game, you'll win a few times, and you get to your new level, and then that's where you stay. 50-50 all the fucking time. Well, maybe you log in and you're just like, oh man, I'm going to fucking try hard today. I'm going to go really serious with this. I'm going to 130% this today. And you win and you win and you win and you win. You win 5 in a row. Fuck yes. But now you're higher than where you're positioned skill-wise. And then the next day you show up and you only bring 100%, like loss as it gets reset back to where you should be. That's actually a problem for some players. They don't like that. part of the random battle mechanic of World of Warships is going to allow somebody who is a 40% player to have a highlight game, because there's all sorts of creative what the fuckisms and insanity that's going to go into random battle, which one is going to make almost every single battlefield different, and two is going to add so much chaos to the situation that you never know what the outcome is going to be. And even somebody that's not amazing might happen to find themselves in a situation where they can shoot somebody in the broadside, get some citadels, and get an achievement, have a highlight game. Part of random battle allows the game to have the longevity that it does, where people play not hundreds of games, but thousands of games, and in some cases, tens of thousands of games. When you go to a skill-based matchmaker, you play hundreds of games and then you go where you go. And now you're there. Some people don't continue to play. So some people just kind of stop at that point. Well, I got as far as I got, and then they quit. So realistically, yeah, sure, a commander with 21 points versus a commander with 15. All you needed was the 10. There's a little additional gravy in there, but honestly, if you're in a 1v1, yeah, that's going to matter more, but you roll into a game with 12 people on both sides. Your 1v1 could suddenly, this dude eats shells from way the fuck over there, pops like a zit, and then before you know it, you're winning. There's so much chaos and so much stuff going on that it's just not worth worrying about. And yeah, there are PR websites that, judge everybody based on their permanent record. PR, permanent record, hee. But it doesn't fucking matter. It never fucking mattered. It only matters because people decided this is really important. My average damage means, my dick is this long, and that's exactly how they're going to live with it. I realize that, but at the end of the day, if you play chess, it's not about how many pieces you took from the enemy before you beat them. It's about winning. Everything else is style. And it's cool to have style. It's important, sure, but winning is what's important. Everything else is secondary to that. All right, so we're going to continue. Basically, just to recap, Matchmaker, it's random. They're going to keep it random. That's what it's going to be. If you want a less random experience, you could play Ranked, where people will start to segregate out. As people that just want to play will play bronze. People that want to play a little harder will play silver. People that actually want to try hard are going to go up to gold. You're still going to get trolls, and you're still going to get people that frankly need to know more about the game. But every level is going to sift out some of the player base to allow you to have a more skill-appropriate experience. Will people still complain? Absolutely. But it's still there. It's an option if you want to play it. Otherwise, random is there, and it is quite literally random. So, yeah. All right, we're going to continue, and I think he's going to ask my question, which I'm excited about, but I think it kind of upset Conway and Sub, so shit. But I think it was important to ask it, because there are a lot of people that were asking in this chat, like, little white mouse, little white mouse, little white mouse, so I really felt it was important to bring it up.
Question from Ahskance. The little white mouse ship issue happened. What part of the issue was that ships are made in strike teams? Is this why feedback/interaction to the process was hard?
Is it about Yukon? Do I understand correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So Ahskance
Yeah.
was asking if strike teams contributed, like that we kind of distribute things to the issue, and why.
No. That's okay. Yeah, I understand. I think actually my colleague Evan, who is North American publishing director, addressed it on forums back then. I think this incident is 3 weeks old or 2 weeks old. So it was addressed specifically along with apology to Little White Mouse and Chubby. But the reason was not strike team, or the reason was that the information of this, like discussing Yukon design, was not properly passed along from one office to another. And the worst part, which I'm still frustrated about in terms of internally, is that basically I, for example, and game designers who are responsible for introducing ships to the game learned about this project in terms of involving Mouse and Chubby basically after reading their review on forums and seeing their discontent, their very rightful discontent and being upset in this review. So it was not about strike team structure. It was about communicating this project between regional and global team. But I want to underline, and generally, if we have any such question in future, I just want you all to understand, guys, that we believe that it's not important specifically who did this mistake and where the process was broken, because the result for the players is the same. And we take responsibility as World of Warships team, not as, North American office. Of course, there were personal apology, but that doesn't mean that we don't understand it's an incident of our game, not of one person. And on behalf of the team, I once again apologize for this, and I hope it will repair it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I hope he wasn't too mad that I asked the question. I felt it was really important to have that asked, and I'm really glad that Tuki read it. I'm really glad that they responded to it. My personal belief, as I kind of talked about this, probably an hour ago. My personal belief was that when you have a company with 500 something people, you're going to create processes. Processes are going to operate like a machine. They start at point A, they end at point Z. And this concept of like introducing the ship in that's, guided by these two players that are, hyper interested about the game. My personal belief was that if any communication breakdown happens at all, basically like the guy that started the project, he ended up moving to a different section of the company, and then suddenly it's like, if you had a window into that machine, if you had a window into that process to alter the process, get the feedback in, get the communication going, well, suddenly that window in, isn't there. And then you're stuck in a process situation of how do you get information from here to there? And if there's not an internal process for doing that, because how many ships are literally assisted in their design state by two outsiders? How often does that occur? I can't imagine it happens very often. So you start running into a process situation of how do you get the information from point A to point B? Who tells who? And then who do they tell? And then who do they tell? And how does it go? Now, he did stress in here, it's not any one person's fault. And I agree with that. The company is at fault because the company wasn't able to deliver on expectations. But I also think that it's not unreasonable to look at a situation and expect a communications breakdown when you never had a communications line that was specifically strung up for that line of communication. If you don't build a bridge from town A to town B, they might have to drive 3 or 5 or 10 towns away to cross a bridge, to then go to a different town to cross a different bridge, to then go over, when they could just move a bridge from here to there. The convoluted path instead of the direct path. And he basically stated that's what it was. It was communication fuck up that, hand A didn't talk to hand, or the left hand didn't talk to the right hand, and he got to find out about it when Little White Mouse published her review with a really scathing, this is what happened and I'm fucking pissed. And I can tell you from the CC Discord, there were a lot of people, not just CCs, wargaming people, that were really fucking pissed that they saw somebody that they felt close to and that they had a long working relationship that by all accounts got fucked over. They were not happy about this at all. So the concept that like wargaming just sat there on their hands and didn't give a shit is completely fucking wrong. They did give a shit. The problem is, how do you go back in time and fix a fuck up that you didn't know was a fuck up until it happened? And I think Little White Mouse has said she sent literal months of information to the contacts that she was given that were supposed to get it to where it needed to be. But again, if you don't have this bridge in place, and the mail doesn't end up getting delivered, then it's just one giant breakdown and one giant explosion of fuck-uppery, which sucks. But I really wanted him to address it, because I know, even though it has been addressed before, even though it has been apologized before, there are still people that are just, really upset about it, still wanted to hear about it. And if you know, her name wasn't mentioned, if the situation wasn't mentioned, then this could be 5 hours long and it would still be, well, they didn't address this. Well, they didn't address the thing that I cared about. So I'm really glad that I got to ask a question and they answered it. I know he was frustrated because he's probably had to answer this shit for weeks. And I know it's a frustrating situation for him because literally in a forum post, Little White Mouse responded a few days ago saying like, you're not getting it. You're not understanding why I'm mad. And she elaborated on a whole bunch of different points. And his response was to go like, I really thought we had this settled, but I guess I just don't understand. I think we need to talk about this again. So who knows? Maybe they will. Hopefully they do. But I think they looked at it as a negotiation, and the creation of a ship from nothing was supposed to be, well, that's like, for lack of a better term, that's the divorce agreement. You know, that's what the lawyers sat down and lawyered out. Granted, it was between two parties, not lawyers. But, I mean, still, like, bad blood is really hard to clear. And it's still there, and people still give a shit. And unfortunately, it's gonna be a thing that's gonna be a long time to clear. So anyway, I'm glad they answered it. And Mr. Kong like, okay, which probably tells me that maybe he's not very happy at me for asking it either. But I still think it was important. So I'm gonna continue the QA.
Sorry, I kind of lost my thread. There's too many chats happening right now.
Yes.
Too many people talking at once. But it will give you an easy one. Can we add X-Ray Papa Una Own and Sierra Bravo signals to signal containers?
I think that's just something that I have to pass to my colleagues to see. I cannot answer yes or no at this point.
Okay, I'll give you another one. Jethro Gray is asking if we have any plans to introduce the World of Tanks system where you can select to have your nickname automatically randomized in each battle in World of Warships. He's interested because he's a streamer.
I just want to say this one's really important to some CCs out there because there are a lot of high-end streamers, super unicums, people in like high-end clans that they hate going into fucking randoms, and people are like, ooh, I recognize that clan. We have to focus him. He's really good. And then they just dogpile somebody because they recognize the name or they recognize the clan or whatever. There are people that really, really, really want some kind of randomizer, some kind of name blocker or whatever. I don't think that's going to happen. And the uber niche question, yeah, it is. I mean, the response has generally been, obviously it's frustrating. Sure, anybody would understand that. But how many people really have this issue? How many clans are so important that everybody knows them that those clanmates get focused? Like 400 people in the world with 400,000 active players, give or take. That's a guess that I made earlier today, was 400,000 players. That's why I keep referencing that. That's not an official data point. I mean, realistically, it's a thing. But it would be nice at least if there was some kind of like checkbox or something you could click so that the little friends listy thing would just show you as offline all the time. So at least sync droppers wouldn't have that. But anyway, I'm going to continue.
Look, do you remember anything about it? Because honestly, my
I also don't know. I know we were talking about it briefly. The unfortunate thing with these kind of things is that while you might look at World of Tanks and say like, hey, this is the same company, this is a different game, they're running, like they used to run the same engine. Unfortunately, our games have changed so much and been developed in such different directions that we can't take a feature from World of Tanks and just say, like Control C, Control V, hey, we have a nickname randomizer in World of Warships. So it would be a lot of work. And I don't know if the demand is high enough to warrant that. I personally think it would be a cool idea because people like to hide their stats for a variety of reasons. They might want to do it because, they're not the greatest player. They don't want to get picked on. They might do it because they're a really, really great player and they don't want, like their enemy team to focus them. They might be because they're a wargaming employee and they're sick of dying in the first 2 minutes. But we'll have to see. We'll have to inquire if there's any plan.
Yes, we'll update this at least internally and see what's the status. Because I know it's been discussed like 100%. I just don't remember the outcome, to be honest, right now. Sorry.
And there's another one that we can pass along from .url. He's saying that Ashitaka is still censored on the SCA server. So if you call it as a priority target, the message gets censored because of the word shit in Ashitaka. I think that we can pass that along. This is probably something that we'll pass it along, and we'll see if we can fix it.
Yeah, I know there were some more issues with that back when Essex was in game as well. So.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, right?
Yep.
Why would they name their ship this? Could they not have thought of us? There's a question here actually from Odd Hegger. He says, "Why did you re-release Missouri instead of just releasing the new ship as New Jersey or Wisconsin or Missouri VJ Day?"
I mean, several reasons. Funnily enough, one of them was like, okay, our community is not really fond of us cloning ships, and maybe looking back, maybe that's the way we should.
We probably should have done it. Yes.
I don't know. Unfortunately, there are some situations where it's very easy to evaluate and decide what was better after it happens, not before.
Yeah.
To evaluate it before it happens is another level of skill. And here anyway, regardless of what decision would be the best, specifically, we didn't take the best decision here.
Yeah, I would just like to point out that this is one of the perfect examples where like we have two very divergent opinions, because we have at the same time we have usually a lot of feedback whenever we release any clone that why are you releasing clones? When we release a clone with special gimmicks, it's why are you making up special gimmicks? And at the same time, we have a lot of feedback. Why don't you release ship XYZ because it's only clone and is historically important? So that's like, yeah, it's always a question. There is no single answer.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like there is absolutely zero blame on players in Missouri situation. We don't trying to to make a good excuse. I'm just talking about there could be different decisions: cloning a ship, selling it directly outright, not after the incident, and many other possible solutions. And we're sorry that we didn't do it. We should have done better. But I'm not sure that specifically cloning the ship would be the best. Maybe not. We'll see. We'll see, because we'll have other cases where I hope we'll be able to prove that we are learning at least to become better.
Yeah, I just see two questions. I didn't catch the names, but the last one is White Archon asking about the same for USS Enterprise, whether we could release a clone of her or return her back. So that's it's always an issue.
Yeah, look, ship request was never a good topic for stream because of how they introduced and produced. Anyway, let's just skip this, and maybe you have some other questions on other topics.
Go ahead, Taki. Sorry, I'm just looking at something.
I'm also.
So actually, look, let's go for something that was asked earlier. It's a question from Akarin 2017. He said, so what are you doing to reduce the risk of and damage by addiction to random mechanics? This seems unaddressed. And he says we need to see an action plan, as they're just words at the moment.
Before he says what he says, I don't remember what he says. For me, I just wonder if, like, what if in this little window before you boot, you could click a button that removes any randomized gambling content or something. You know, asks you a question, do you want to see random chance-based purchases? And if you click the button no, then they just don't appear in your armory. You don't get the news items. In which case that aspect of the game is gone. I know it'd be probably a lot of work, but realistically, if you could just click a checkbox that you don't want to see the shit, you don't want your, if you are an adult and you have your kids play the game, because people are concerned about kids and shit somehow blowing thousands of dollars on loot boxes because, lunch money. But realistically, if you could click the box, just, Would that also transpose to daily containers having random contents too? No, I mean like, well, obviously, if you clicked a checkbox, right, that removed like the collaborations loot boxes. Like if we go in there, there was some Galaxy Heroes thing where you could buy loot boxes that you might be able to get camos or skins or commanders or something in, right? Well, if you click this, then just that part of the armory section doesn't appear. So there were some sections where you could spend some doubloons and you could buy a camo, but the boxes wouldn't be there, or a bundle wouldn't be there, some shit like that. Actually, I don't know if you read in the statement, the revenue stuff, this is not something that's required. The loot boxes and stuff, the loot boxes and random bundles are supplemental. They're not the baseline for the game. The baseline coverage for the game comes from premium account, which is essentially like paying a subscription. I like the game, so I pay a subscription, that kind of thing, a subscription fee. And also direct sales of ships. So you buy a ship, you know, 40 bucks, 80 bucks, whatever the fuck it is. What I'm saying is if there's somebody that well and truly actually has a gambling condition and they know this, they're aware of this, and they don't want to be tempted, they're an ex-service member, they're a gambling addict, they're whatever, that if in this window or some kind of something, that there was a button you could say, like there are in-game purchases in this thing, or maybe the first time you boot up the game. There are in-game purchases available in World of Warships. Some have randomized chance. Would you like to disable these for your account? And you could click the button and you just wouldn't see them. But will it happen? Fuck, I don't know. But realistically, what percentage of the population would even use that button? 1 to 3%, maybe? So it's going to be a percentage, like a statistical number, but it's not going to be like 80% will, oh, not for me. Most people will leave it on because people don't like to deny themselves access to something, even if they won't use it or don't care about it. They would rather it be there so that they could actively say, nah, don't give a shit about this, rather than just make it disappear. But realistically, I think that's what people are requesting when they say like they want all the gambling to go away. There's nothing wrong with having loot boxes or random bundles for somebody that's going to be able to approach that responsibly. For somebody that has addictive tendencies and cannot approach that responsibly, that's where people's concern comes in. Hence why I thought, hey, maybe they could have like a checkbox thing, but that's just me suppositioning. That's not anything to do with this Q&A or the answer. Most companies put cash grab aspects into cosmetics and skins. This was answered by Evan. Evan actually said that initially no, the Peggy 18 doesn't mean anything about this. That's actually a misconception. That's not correct. So, sorry, I'm going to take a while on this just because this is a really hot button issue, I guess, at the moment. Evan, who is the North American publishing producer person, talked about cosmetics and skins. Now, in other games like League of Legends or whatever, you might have a cartoonish thing. Like instead of your character looking like a person, they look like a Jedi, or they look like a teddy bear, or they look like a spaceship, whatever. You know, cosmetic silliness that you can buy for the fun of it because fuck it, why not? Or Fortnite, God knows what you could turn into, a weird banana monster. However, when they first started World of Warships, they were very concerned that people that played would be extremely history focused. And if they started selling Gorilla, the Kong versus Godzilla thing, if they started selling Giant Monkey on a ship, or they started selling the weird shit from Rogue Wave, or the camos that were used in the key battle stuff, that would be an extreme turnoff for historical buffs, people that are in the niche, whatever. So they didn't do it because they thought nobody would care. They just figured, well, we'll just sell ships, and that's what they did. Now, as they continued along, they eventually they found that anime was a thing. People liked the anime shit. So, okay, cool. So they started adding more and more anime stuff. And yes, it might bother some historical people, but they added a checkbox that you can click, and all of those skins and camos disappear for people that don't want to see it. They just want to see the ship. And then they've started adding additional camouflages and stuff off of Halloween modes and other things, and they've begun to start selling, but primarily this game makes its money through premium account or premium time and direct ship sales. Peggy 18 being about adult content Okay, violence, gore, nudity, etc. Yes. So for those that aren't aware of this, I'm going to link something to you. I think I mentioned this also in the... I mentioned it in this, which is the long-running statement. Hopefully this finished. Did this ever finish rendering? Fuck, it's still going. How obnoxious is that? I mentioned it in this, but I'll go ahead and link it for the fuck of it. So that's the me responding to the statement that they put out. But there was a wonderful documentary that I seriously, honest to God, recommend that you check out, which is about the ESRB, which did not ever do interviews or documentaries. However, NoClip does game documentary stuff and are highly regarded. So they did actually allow them in, and they had a good conversation. That YouTube video is fucking great. It's like 50 minutes to an hour talking about the ESRB, which is the PEGI of the US. It was, if I understand correctly, it was the initial ratings board for games. And primarily it was like when Doom came out, Doom had demons and Satan and stuff. Ooh, fire and scary stuff. Well, at what age is that appropriate for a kid? Is that a teen thing? Is that a 7-year-old thing? Like when is it too scary? When is it not kid appropriate? Or there were other games that had, you know, like cars that drove over people and murdered people and stuff, or Grand Theft Auto, you know, came out. So they created a ratings board so that the government wouldn't create a ratings board for them, because God knows the government has no fucking clue about what games are. So they figured, let's keep this in industry and we'll regulate ourselves. So this PEGI content, PEGI 7, any of that bullshit, there's no marketing World of Warships to a 7-year-old because it's marketed to an adult. It's basically a tabletop game that's run in real time. But they did mention that while they've added in-game purchases to their PEGI rating, and they've resubmitted to the ESRB, they've resubmitted to PEGI and I guess other ratings boards, what that does is that effectively adds a label so that if a parent looks at it and goes, you know, it's an eyeball, it's a thing that you can just kind of glance at and go, teen, T for teen. Maybe this is okay. And then you can look at the subheadings. Oh, nudity? Oh, no, I don't, no nudity for my kid. Whereas like super incredible violence, but it's still T for teen. I don't care about violence. Kid's fine. You know, that allows the parent to make the informed decision. I extremely disagree with this. And I think you need to watch this video to understand why. There's nothing mature. Here. Okay, let's do this. I'm gonna do this real quick. Forgive me. We're going on a tangent here. So here is, we're gonna pretend draw here. Let's see. We'll go with this, and here we go. So we've got this. We'll pretend here's a bathtub, and here is a little kid derping around in the water, splashing some water over the side. Whatever, because little kids splash water over the side and stuff. And you got a kid in here doing kid stuff. Yay! And what does this kid have? He's got little floaty boats. He's got a little boat over here, and he's got another little boat over there. And he's making pew pew noises, imagining this boat is shooting that boat. And this boat's shooting that boat. It's a 3-year-old kid taking two boats and smashing them together. Holy shit, oh my god. Are you gonna censor this? Are you going to take the boats away from the 3-year-old kid that's in a bathtub imagining boats pew-pewing each other because this is some mature shit right here? No! There's no gore. There's no violence. There's no nudity. There's no swearing. There's no law breaking. There's no evil. There's no satanic, weird, fucking ritualistic crazy shit. There's a little kid smashing boats together. Psh, psh, psh. There's nothing endemically wrong about this. This is like saying, and as dumb as this is gonna sound, this is like saying that you've got Tetris. And you've got your Tetris whatever, there's a little L shape, here's a square, here's a little T. You know, you've got your Tetris thing, and stuff is going down, but Tetris has in-game purchases. Tetris is mature. The fuck are you talking about? It's Tetris. There's no nudity, language, or bullshit. Well, it's got loot boxes in it, so shit's mature now. What? Like, you have to be realistic about what this is. And the ratings boards, they're rating what's being put in front of the child. this, you know, little boats shooting each other and making smash noises and stuff, this is not something that's going to turn your child into a gang member. This is not something that's going to corrupt your child for the rest of their life. Tetris is not something that's going to corrupt the child for the rest of your life. Now, granted, this is one of the reasons why just a few minutes ago I mentioned, man, if there was just a checkbox where you could remove loot boxes and random bundles, well, then suddenly it's just a game where you can buy ships. And evidently nobody's scared about buying shit because everybody's gone to a store and bought stuff. So there's nothing scary about that. Rouse should be rated X because everyone who plays gets it fucked. Plays it gets fucked. Yuck, yuck. You've already submitted a long argument to the ESRB about this. There's something that involves the exchange of real-world money for games of chance. Now, actually, this is addressed in this video right here that I'm linking to you and telling you, dude, you should watch this. Because evidently the ESRB does not consider loot boxes to be gambling. Why? Well, we'll go back to Paint again for the fuck of it. So here, you've got money. Here's your cash. Here's your $5 or something. You're going to bet it on something. You're going to bet on, you know, well, okay, it's not green now, but fuck it. No, we're going to make it green again. There we go. There's your cash. There's your $5 bill. You're going to put this shit down and you're going to say that this tank is going to beat this tank, or this horse is going to beat that horse, or whatever. You're going to bet on some event. What is the result of this? If your tank wins, then you, by the process of gambling, have now taken money. If your tank loses, then by the process of, you know, uncertain odds, you lose money. You don't get anything. So there's an opportunity to get more, or there's an opportunity to lose everything. Because loot boxes technically don't do this, this is one of the reasons why loot box regulation is weird. You offer up money and you will always get stuff. Now that stuff may not be what you want. You might want, you know, the cool teddy bear prize over here so that you can give that to your kid and your kid will love you with all the greatest respect or whatever. But instead you get gray boxes, son of a bitch. And then you go back in, you put more money in the machine. You get a brownish bouncy ball or a weird trash bag looking thing. Son of a bitch. But if this has technical value and this has technical value, then it's not gambling in the sense that you're not putting your money at risk to lose and get no value for. Again, this is why this video is interesting, because the ESRB has, granted it's like 5 minutes, but it does briefly talk about it. And one of the reasons why random bundles can be considered an evolution on loot boxing, because random bundles actually tell you what you're about to buy, even if it's not something you want to buy, because you're trying to get to the thing that's still hidden behind however many bundles you have to go through to get it. Yes, it can be referred to as gambling. Yes, there is uncertainty involved, but the reason it is not termed as gambling is because it's not an all or nothing win or lose scenario. It's a purchase exchange. You just might be buying shit you don't want. But anyway, again, absolutely check out this video. It's fucking great. No Clip is an excellent documentary channel on YouTube. Can recommend. So we've really talked about this a lot, so I'm going to move on.
I don't think there will be like big plan. What we committed to is that we, apart from being fully
Feeding your family?
Ugh. Well, while this is running, take the argument of people buying stuff through 400 permanent camos available in Distant Voyages container. The responsible thing for Wargaming would do would have been to offer the camos for sale, not hidden behind RNG that requires whatever to roll. In that respect, Wargaming, not the players, is acting irresponsibly in a predatory manner. None of the camos matter. None of them. They don't matter. You don't need them for the game. They are not important. So, based on the statement that they put out, I'm going to stop this and we're going to continue talking about this because evidently it's a thing. Based on the statement that they put out, if it's a game critical thing like a ship or a specific thing, this was addressed in their statement, then they've committed to provide a direct sale option. That direct sale may be time gated. It may be event driven, where you have to complete an event or an in-game activity to gain access to the ability to buy it. Because honestly, roadblocks and shit happen. But for anything that is anything that can be used in the game to a competitive extent, because sometimes premium ships will be used in competitive extents. See Huang He in current clan battle season. That stuff they have committed to give a direct buy for. But camos don't fucking matter. They don't matter. You don't need them. You don't have to buy them. You don't need the boxes. No part of camos matter. So because of that, you have to keep it in perspective, and you can't just go, well, somebody's going to say camos matter and they're going to spend money. It's going to come down to that's their choice. And it sucks to say that. And if you really wanted to protect them, it would be really cool if there was a checkbox that could move those camos out of existence. The camos they're not even there. Just gone, snuffed. Thanos snapped out of existence. But it is what it is. Was this only done today after the storm, resulting in what they've been doing? You're talking about the statement? They've been working on the statement for 2 to 3 weeks now. And the addition of the direct buy option was something that I believe resulted out of the CC Discord backlash when they announced that the Missouri would be available only for random bundles. I personally made the point after back and forth discussion over the monetization of it that Americans don't like to haggle. We like to be able to buy something directly. So if you go into a store and something says $5, you don't go to the counter and you go like, well, I think this is really worth $2. Yeah, it's $5. You pay $5 or you don't get it. Like, we're okay with paying. We're just not okay with haggling and waffly bullshit. And I try to make the point, if you can give us a direct buy, or some people termed it a buyout option, then there are going to be people that take that. Some people don't care. They're fine with getting the bundles because they get other shit in the bundles too, and they're okay with that. Sure, you do you, bro. But I thought it was very important as an American who fucking hates haggling that you have a direct buy option, and that's what they did. They time gated it by 2 weeks, the in-game Missouri mission thing. So there are in-game activities, there's time before you can get to the direct buy option, but it does exist. And thankfully, its existence does matter. It is important. You may not like it. Well, the people are just going to take random bundles anyway. But it still fucking matters because it wasn't there before. CC's fought for it, they added it, and then they've taken that path and put it into their statement that they put out, which I'm really excited about. Because like a ship, for instance, the Ahskance, which was not released in any buyable way. It was only released in loot boxes. I heard somebody they got a bunch of boxes hoping for the fucking Ahskance, and they never goddamn got it because that's the nature of random chance. So I was excited to see the statement, but yeehaw, it's going to move forward anyway. Some got Missouri on the first bundle. Sure. 2.4% theoretically would be getting, of the player base would get that on the first bundle, because that's random distribution. You chose to get it via bundles. Actually, the original version was probably a 75 bundle. I think there was a leak about that. It got changed to 41 bundles. With the doubloons that you could get back from the premium ship containers that you could get through the tokens, as well as the doubloons you could get back if you had the Missouri already, there was actually a lot of financial incentive to use the random bundle because you might actually pay off everything and get flags for free. So in this case, when they basically took out about a third of the random bundles, I think it actually weighted the economics almost toward the player. So in this case, it ended up being, well, not as awful as it sure as shit could have been, but it's still an evolution that they've committed to. There will be a direct buy option. Most responsible companies monetize with the purchase of cosmetic and skins, not rolling for them. But not all companies are responsible. Wargaming will push the envelope in that regard and say sorry later than avoid it in the first place. I'm not going to continue talking about this because this is a thing that you're extremely passionate about, and I'm not here to convince you otherwise. My level of give a shit is much lower than yours, and I'm not going to run down that road. I'm going to continue with the Q&A. So, as far as for here, I'm going to ask that we stop this conversation so that we can move on. Okay. Actions are more important than words. I'd wait and see. Yeah, see, that's actually part of what this whole stream and shit was about. One off, they didn't want to just rush out a statement that's just a bunch of happy sounding words and shit, which I thought was actually kind of funny because femininely said she wrote out a statement that was beautiful and magical and soothed shit in 18 minutes, which by the very meaning of that says within 18 minutes, somebody with a writing degree can shit out something that doesn't matter to make people feel good. I mean, that's the definition of what you don't want. Them instead taking 2 to 3 weeks and going through a whole bunch of internal struggle and figuring shit out as to how they're going to change their practices and move forward as a company, that has more substance to me, and I would imagine to other people. And then this QA, their statement and other stuff is talking about that moving forward. Both you and your son got the Mo first bundle. Woot! Glad to hear it, dude. I got it 19th and 15th. I did it on my press account and then my main account because there was an XCC that made a post saying, hey, let's see if these are weighted. Let's see if there's some behind the scenes bullshittery that's going to fuck people over. And whatever I can contribute to the cause. I get 10,000 doubloons per patch from Wargaming. So I've gotten, 70,000? So I put in doubloons. I got the Missouri. I got all my doubloons back because the CCs had the Missouri. So when I got it a second time, I got the doubloons back. So that was nice. At least I didn't end up throwing away doubloons because, hey, it has value. But, I chipped in my little data point to the cause. But then eventually I think Evan chimed in. Thank you very much, Porky. Thank you very much for the resub, man. By the way, since I'm thinking about it, I did do an interview with Porky. I've actually done 2 with him, but I did a recent one, so I will go ahead and pimp that. This is the recent one where he said Ahskance, so I have an S now. But that is the second interview, so hey, we're plural. But that is the thing. So thank you very much, Porky, for the interview. All right, so we're going to continue because holy shit, I've talked a lot. I think we got super off topic, and I think I have like another 10 minutes, 5 minutes to go, and it's almost 1 a.m. So I do work tomorrow. All right.
Want to do some our own in-house additional measures, and right
from Akarin 2017. He said, so what are you doing to reduce the risk of and damage by addiction to random mechanics? This seems unaddressed. And he says we need to see an action plan, as they're just words at the moment.
I don't think there will be like big plan. What we committed to is that we, apart from being fully compliant to the current laws and industry practices, we do want to do some our own in-house additional measures. And right now we're discussing what could it be. And anyway, we already allocated resources. We decided that this is a task for us. Somehow we'll do it. How exactly? Well, I don't know at this point. I don't want just to, throw around different options on how it would be done. And what would it be? A tick box disclaimer? I don't know. Anything in the Armory and Premium Shop, we'll see.
Yeah.
But the point
I guess
is
he just said
that we want
checkbox,
to do
tick box.
something internally to offer some additional protection for people who are concerned with or who may be damaged with such mechanics. Because obviously, damaging our players and making things like this is completely outside of any possible goals. We don't want that. So we are willing to do something on our side, even though it's not demanded by law. We still will do our research and try to do something. And we will share it probably in devlog, just like every other feature we share in advance, and you'll see what we came up with.
Yeah, this I believe also answers the question from King underscore family about. He asked specifically about the children, but it's it's the same question. So we are working on it. We will let you know.
Yeah, but with children, it's a relevant question, but also I think we should remember that World of Warships is a game with extremely high average age of a player, and when we were discussing this, I've dug into our research and found out that depending on the server and the month and the year, we didn't have more than 4% of the audience under 16 years old. and this is just audience, so playing audience, not paying audience. And when I tried to look for paying audience in this group, I couldn't find any proper data because, and my colleagues told me that they don't take this into account because there is such small number of people from this group who actually pay anything, purchase anything, that is just on the scale of statistical fluctuation.
I'm sorry. I'm just... Okay. Thank you. I'm not going to continue the discussion. I wanted to, for people that are listening in a car ride or something, because sometimes people will do this, or hell, I'll listen to these as I drive around, just kind of refresh my memory and think about it. Hey, if only there were a rating that did this. I played Grand Theft Auto. That's mature. I played a variety of different games. They're mature. If this one was rated as mature, I'd play it all the fucking same. I'm sorry, bruh. Like, I don't know how many people you think actually that are adults, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old adults that are gonna, this is mature. Not for me, bro. I'm sorry, dude. Like, be realistic about this. But anyway, I'm gonna continue.
But apart from doing these internal measures, we still don't want to have any ambiguity in this question. We don't want like children to be in danger, of course, with such mechanics. And apart from researching what can we do in game, we've also going to apply to PG to see about
Peggy.
our 7+ rating, and we want to increase this because we don't need it. It's not our target group, and this rating was not requested by us specifically. It was just given to us at a certain time because this is how it works. You apply, and then you are evaluated and you're given this rating. But this time we specifically want to address it, and overall we'll keep an eye on it and we'll keep in contact with other rating agencies, because with all due respect to children, like they're the opposite of our target audience. Basically, our game is for adults and for adults only, and just because it's slow tactical strategy game, and I believe that if like in terms of the industry, there are probably other places where we should think about children, not the game which is played by 30 years old guys like us.
Yeah, and that's like somebody was just saying in chat, why not rate it as adult then? I mean, like on a technical perspective, maybe we could ask them to, but you have to realize that having your game rated as an adult game severely restricts what you can do with it. Like that means, for instance, at Gamescom, we wouldn't be able to go on the stage and show you the game because it would be an 18+ game. We'd just not be allowed to let you in. It would mean that we couldn't have advertisements on many websites, and like we're not an adult game. We don't have adult content in the game, but we'll do what we can to
we wish we had,
limit
right?
this. Well, we've come close once or twice, at least on YouTube.
I mean, at least if we had this rating, we had collaboration with Sausages on CIS server, and if we had 18+ rating, we could be able to do collaboration with Czech beer and combine that, and it would be cool. So there could be some benefits for us, but we don't use them. We don't have this amount of violence, this amount of adult topics, and I don't see any actually reason to go that far, to be honest. But anyway, we are committed to both adjusting our ratings and to implementing some in-game measure to additionally protect people who can be vulnerable for such mechanics. On a serious note, that's what we will do.
Yeah. Europizza is asking, will Wargaming address the PEGI 7 rating of World of Tanks that has a much younger audience? We can't speak here for the World of Tanks. This would be up to the World of Tanks development team to decide. But as in a similar vein, it's not that World of Tanks is a game aimed at like children playing with tanks. It's that World of Tanks is a game about tanks that's reasonably harmless in terms of like age rating, and just by it received a low age rating, similar to many other games that you can find on the internet that have random mechanics, if I may point that out.
Okay, so first off, thank you for the raid, Mr. Bucket. Mr. Bucket, a butch balls in my mouth. I love his little subscription thing because I remember that from when I was a kid. I do in Mr. Mucket. Shit. Well, I can do this. I can say it correctly. That's right. Okay, cool. I'm gonna re-shout out to a person that actually exists, although maybe Mr. Mucket is actually a thing. Thank you very much for the Thank you very much for the raid. In terms of the person that got banned, I unbanned them. I have a rule in this channel: don't be a dick. Failing that, don't try to be a dick. I don't think the person was trying to be a dick. I think this is just something they're extremely passionate about. People are going to get passionate. I'm going to talk about mechanics. I'm going to talk about divisive things. This is obviously a divisive thing. I had a straight up argument with the dude. But in that case, I probably would have timed him out. So when I realized, whoa, wait, banned? Really? Banned? Like, as in forever? So I reversed the ban. So if you're still in the audience, you're unbanned. But please respect. Let's not continue that discussion because we discussed it a lot. However, Sub-Octavian, when asked about, are you going to take additional measures to try to protect people that have gambling addictions, or I guess kids in this case, etc., just the whole gamut, he said, honestly, it's something we're trying to figure out internally, and we want to do something. We don't know what that something's going to be yet, but we want to do something. So they basically, it's not a commitment. It's not saying that they're going to add the checkbox that's going to remove all the stuff. But the fact that they give a shit enough to think about it and they'll have the conversation, I take as a good sign. However, as somebody else pointed out, you can say things, but actions speak louder than words. Ultimately, I hope they make an action on this one. I hope they find something, a way that they can do it, be it a checkbox that you can do so the loot boxes and stuff are gone. Oh no, it's all good, Angelic. All good, man. So as long as they give a shit, that means something for me. And I realize, talk, action, yada yada. From my experiences on the Discord and my experiences watching these, reporting on them, putting them up to YouTube, talking about this shit, they care. This was a 4-alarm fire. This is like an all hands on deck. If you felt like the world was spinning, fuck it, it's fine. This was when a whole bunch of people woke up and smelled the burning building. And you can either just run out of the burning building, or you can try to save the burning building. And that's what these Q&As are for. That's what that statement is for. There's a whole lot of people trying to save the burning building, because there's no reason for the building to burn down if it hasn't gotten to a point where it's unrecoverable. And it's not unrecoverable. Right now, it's a shitty-ass PR situation, and everything they say, just like Porky said, is going to be shoved back in their face. But it's a wonderful game. World of Warships is a fucking amazing game, and it's absolutely worth saving. And no matter how much of the community wants to fucking burn it to the ground because they don't like how something gets spent or because how some event was run, the game itself is amazing. And if they never include another single event in this game, if they never sell another fucking ship, if the community crowdfunds to keep the servers alive or something, like, it's still a fucking great game. So I'm not trying to say that I'm dismissing of predatory situations or obnoxious grinds and bullshit to go from point A to point B. I'm not going to like it just like anybody else is not going to like it. But I still think it's worth saving, and I'm glad that it looks like there's a way back, because for a while it felt like there just wasn't. Which is one of the reasons why I've put out as many videos as I have, trying to get out information, because I felt like it was a shit sandwich of a situation, and that I needed to try to help. And that's what I've been doing. So I've been trying to help. It doesn't mean that I'm trying to become Wargaming's white knight. But I see a whole bunch of people that give a shit. I see a bunch of smart people in the game design industry trying to design fucking games. And I empathize with that because I love game design. So, if I ever felt that somebody was disingenuous or somebody was full of shit, I would absolutely say that. I have not personally run into anybody that I've seen as two-faced or manipulative or fucking over people. I've seen a bunch of people that are basically looking at it and going, how can I help? And I appreciate that. I think it's cool. Okay. If Wargaming goes to a mature rating, you want blood and gore. You love this game. The art department is incredible. Game mechanics can be tuned, but you feel the sales management team is just out to make as much money as quickly as possible. Well, Mr. Conway actually on 2 weeks ago on the first Q&A stream after the crazening, right after the explosion, he stated something, and I don't remember his words on this, but it was like, right. I'm going to paraphrase. This is not what he said, but I'm going to paraphrase because I'm trying to give the intent of what his response was. We need to be making sure that we're making money, but not trying to make all the money. That we're trying to, you know, approach it from an appropriate level of we're doing something, we're adding content, and we have a reasonable expectation that people will partake in that content, not trying to make content that's just extremely fucking, people have to dump all the cash into it and it just becomes a spending pit. Like, that's not the interaction that, at least in what he was saying, that's not the interaction he feels, or he felt, that World of Warships was supposed to have with its community. And I took that to mean, because as a company representative, there's only so much he can tell you, but I took that to mean that 72 fucking random bundles on a Johann DeWitt is probably too many goddamn random bundles. You know, loot boxes with a low percentage chance for the Agincourt is probably too low a chance to get the Agincourt. That's how I read his response. That it's okay to have a game that you pay for. It's okay to have interactions that make sense. It's not okay to make interactions where you're set up to just like sink into a fucking money pit and expect that people are going to keep willingly showing up and jumping into the money pit to drown. Because that's ignorance. It's stupid. Whereas you can work on a game for 10 to 15 years and people pay for your product and you provide a product and everybody's happy. People get employed, the game continues. You know, it's a wonderful, beautiful experience. There's no reason to treat this like it's something that's going out of style. So obviously he's a wargaming representative, so I probably put a lot of words in his mouth, but that's certainly how I read that situation, and I felt pretty good about that read. I felt that it made sense. So, were they over bundling? Yeah, they were over bundling. What did they do? They reduced the bundles. Were they over relying on loot boxes? Yeah, they were over relying on loot boxes. What are they going to do? They're going to publish percentages, and they're going to offer a secondary way to interact with shit. I believe they give a shit. Anyway, yeah, imagine you had to go to loot bundles to get service for your mobile phone. All right, so we're going to continue.
I will just quickly answer a comment from Shakadi. Well then, if the average age of the player in World of Warships is older, can you at least hire a few older community managers? Taki, Chrysanthus, and Conway look like they just left school compared to us old kids. I can safely say that I'm basically in the average band, and Mr. Conway is older than he looks. He just cannot grow any facial hair properly.
That's true.
So.
Look, if we went full screen, you could probably see the gray coming through. Unfortunately, we've all seen too many more summers than we would care to do. There we go. But we actually have a brand new community manager starting very soon in our European office, and we will have lots of fun with him because he is definitely going to be the youngest, probably in the World of Warships development team worldwide. It's going to be hilarious.
There is a question from Wanahiki that I can also answer straight away. Will you fix the curving torpedo bug this year? Yes, we will. Actually, we will fix it in the upcoming update 10.8. So, yes, it took us some time, but it's a bug concerning the game logic. So, unfortunately, it cannot be fixed overnight. It needs to be tested, but we are fixing it.
Okay. Look, I think actually.
So I think they're actually going to wrap up here. But one thing that was pointed out there was also pointed out in the statement that if you have live product, and when they say product, they mean the stuff that's on live server, production. It's like if you're putting on a show, you know, you've got live news or something in the background, that's production. That's what you're producing. So if they have something that's a numbers value that's wrong. So for instance, like Des Moines on accident, instead of doing 5,000 damage per AP shell, it's doing 20,000 damage per AP shell. Ooh, holy shit! They can tap into the game and they can turn 20,000 to 5,000, and the game is going to take that number and just run with it. and oh, okay, cool, it's fixed. Great, we fixed that bug. Awesome, done. But when you start having coding logic issues, where you start having how the code interacts with itself, you could fix the Torp bug, but break the code in 2 or 3 other places, in places you aren't going to find out about for like 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, you have like a shit rolling problem that's rolling up into something because people aren't noticing, but they're getting damaged in the credits they earn, or the something they're doing, or the whatever that's happening. Or people are getting straight up disconnected from the game randomly because the code is breaking. Like, stuff like that, you can't fuck with that on production. It sucks that the torpedoes were curving, but you don't fuck with code if you have, like, if there's any way to avoid it. And that's what they did. They went through the production cycle. But they were actually saying it really sucked that their process is so internal that they didn't tell anybody. We found the code, we know the fix for the code, but it's in game logic. We've already, fixed it and we're testing it. It'll be live hopefully in 2 or 3 patches or something. Mostly it was just, shit, it's not fixed yet. And that messaging, that communication is something that they need to work on and fix. By the way, thank you very much, Trilamar. I do want to say, Ahskance, that I feel you have a balanced view on this game and wargaming. I don't like the company, but I love the game. Well, I do like the company because I've seen what I believe maybe I've seen the best of the company. I haven't seen the bad that other people talk about. I haven't seen like iChase or something has put out videos saying that he felt disrespected and he felt this or whatever. And, Jingles feels like he's not utilized as a person. His opinion isn't mattered. Stuff of that nature. I guess I disagree because I fundamentally see the game industry differently, and I haven't seen any poor interactions. I've seen confusing ones, seen that, but I haven't seen any bad faith interactions. So I don't know. Maybe it'll get to a point where I don't like the company or I don't agree with something, but I haven't seen that yet. I've seen a bunch of people that give a shit. So, all right, we're going to continue.
Actually, with that, I can see there's some questions coming, but questions about like the topic at hand, which was the statement, are slowly drying up. And we do have some other content to cover. So I think we're at this point going to slowly say goodbye to Sub Octavian. But Taki and me will keep answering some questions, and we can go into some of the more kind of general questions that I've been avoiding right now. That because we can answer those, we don't need Sub Octavian for that, and we have quite a lot of devblock content to have a look at and talk through. So you guys have a nice.
So I think at this point they're just gonna outro Sub Octavian, tell them, hey, we stream every week if you want to swing by. But yeah, so this is basically the Q&A. They're gonna info dump a bunch of stuff, and then they're doing a COTS show match where they're looking at a different way to do the camera, because the game is interesting, but how do you make sure that people that don't know the game find it interesting? So they're figuring out how to do camera work for that, and hopefully they refine it, but it's a work in progress. Interesting. I always thought the Torp curve was a natural consequence of ship's tangential momentum mixed with camera angle a bit. Basically, if I understand this correctly, there was a thing with the targeting reticle for rockets, say, that it would move up sharply. If you had a change of height, and after one patch or something, that reticle broke, so that you could click here, but the server would register the click here, and that's what would stick. So you would click to say, I want to shoot in this place, but because of lag, you'd actually shoot up here. And that's game breaking in the sense that your input is not giving you what you tried to shoot at. This game logic seems to work that if you've got, the water, and you've got a boat that you're shooting at, a bad guy over here, you're going to put your little reticle, whatever, we'll do this. You're going to put your little reticle, come on, give me something that's large enough to move, on the ship and take a shot. And your client records this shot with relative to that ship and then sends the snapshot basically to the server, and the server does all the math. So lag doesn't really affect you because your client tells the server what it saw at the time. Well, the Torp Bug was that torpedoes were being chucked, you know, that's not what I'm looking for. Torpedoes were being chucked at, instead of being chucked like in their normal pattern or whatever from like a set location, which technically is not static. Can we do this? We'll do that. So this location right here is a set location, even though the ship is continuing to move. So technically, that's kind of cheating because that's a frozen moment in time. Well, when the ship turns, instead of having a set location, it was firing off of the torpedo like actual loading area, I guess. So then you started having this get spread out. So the first shot would be there, the second one would be there, and the third one would be there. Because it would alter based on the movement of the ship. So they had to recode how this snapshots or how this interacts or something. That's my guess. But yes, it was a coding error. And it's like if they communicated the problem and the fact that they had a fix for it, but they weren't able to implement it yet, there probably would have been more goodwill in the community, which again comes down to a communication thing. Alrighty, so this is going to wrap this up. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to upload it as a two-parter because my internet shit out in the middle of it. But hey, that's fine. This one by itself is almost 2 hours long, so it's a pretty healthy part, I would say.